engaging work team resource investments. To what degree does your organization provide teams with time to review data and plan improvements? To what degree does the organization provide work team leaders with time to address work team needs away from the work area? Is the work team provided with time to periodically meet away from the work area? Do we allocate support group hours to help make work area improvements, or is it just left up to the supervisor of that group? Do we budget capital and expense money specifically for work area improvements? Some companies don't do this. Do we provide work teams with the proper amount of on-the-job training so they can be effective and error-free, or at least error minimum, in their jobs? And then finally, do we minimize the use of overtime in favor of job coverage or shutdown? And again, work-life balance is key in the next-gen workplace. Using overtime is counter to a good work-life balance. So, huddle for at least 5 minutes a day. That's what your work team should do. And it could be little informal huddles. It doesn't have to be all 15 or 20 people in one group. But we need to get together for this small amount of time each day to talk about how yesterday went, what were yesterday's results, share information about any special concerns for this work day. And we want to ensure that a common vision of what we want to accomplish today exists. Supervisors should avoid repeating the same old thing each day. Base your message for the current day on what happened yesterday, how it relates to the trends, and where the site is going. Leaders should try to build their daily message on what needs to be done around yesterday's results as they relate to goals and trends for each key performance area. So did anyone get hurt? Did we have any significant near misses? Did we operate within budget? Did we have any significant waste yesterday? Did all of our customers leave happier than when they came in the shop? Or were there some significant customer issues that we need to document? Feedback should be encouraged at all times. Recognize the need to be away from the workplace. Supervisors usually end up with the daily job of being the group's gopher. They spend their day going for this and going for that to keep their team going. A key to work group success lies in having this time away from the process spent on improvement efforts versus fighting fires. And so actually fighting fires and being a gopher in the next generation workplace, that's actually leader standard waste. Because we don't want our leaders doing that as a standard method of work. Consider providing some type of coverage within the breaks and lunch rotation scheme to allow other team members to fill the gopher and process improvement roles. And that's if you want true empowerment, if you want your higher priced labor to be focusing on higher skilled activities. Many supervisors come from the hourly ranks. They will regress back to their prior job if you don't encourage them to learn the new skills and apply the new skills. Okay, third, we need to know what is broken, what needs to be fixed, and what needs to be improved. And this is very important. If a work environment that encourages feedback exists, then the team has already defined at least 1 to 2 years worth of project work that is needed to improve their work area and processes. In an engaged, empowered work team, there are no surprises. We know what our challenges are. We know we can't fix them right away, but we know what they are, and we have contingent actions to help us deal with them. The team leader should work with the team to build and prioritize this list, and prioritize is key here. Once the list is created, new ideas can be added to it as they are identified. The key project list can also be used as a reference during the annual planning process. So in the best systems, each team has their own data sets that are part of the larger key project list. And so when annual planning occurs, we can look at both what the site needs and what individual team needs and take it from there. When we do so, this helps ensure that capital and expense monies get budgeted for the most necessary work area improvements. The final investment area for work teams is we want to use our time wisely. Now that might sound like that goes without saying, but as with project teams, work teams need to make sure that the perils of training too soon and excessive overtime reliance are avoided. Those are your two bigger traps in terms of work team time waste. That's not counting downtime and rework and scrap and all the other actual process failures that can eat up line time or process time or value stream time. As their main objective is to get the work done each day in an efficient, safe, and high-quality manner, time is of the essence. Each team member should know the purpose of any meeting time that's invested, and they should all share the concern of using this time wisely. More key team support ratios. So on the prior page, I gave you 2 of the 5 key support ratios. Now let's look at the other 3. We have training hours versus meeting hours. It's important to estimate how much training time a team will need over its life cycle, and there's no one benchmark for any given group. You have to find out where you're at and work from there. This is not a one-time upfront cost. It's not a fixed cost. If you cover all of your training topics at the time of team startup, that's a fixed cost. Unfortunately, you're going to have to repeat many of them again or live with the ineffectiveness that comes with skill misuse or non-use. Instead, it's better to recognize that at least 10 to 15 hours of training will need to be mixed into the life cycle of the team's first project. And this is around 1 to 1.5 training hours per hour of meeting time. And that's just going out and looking at, what is the standard 1 or 2 day problem solving training. That's where you get your 10 to 15 hours. As teams become more successful in the organization, project complexity will probably also increase. As complexity increases, the team will need additional skills to maintain the competency necessary to address the complexity. If you expect your project teams to remain in existence, and if you expect them to be successful for several years, you should also expect to consistently invest a certain amount of training resources in each team member every year. And it could end up just being a team training day. You could train your leaders quarterly at team leader meetings. It doesn't have to be extravagant. You don't have to shut down the facility if you plan ahead. It's common to increase the size of your team leader pool over time through this use of effective team leader development. So that's the other element you want to think. We're not just training team members, we're helping to develop team members, some of them at least, to be future team leaders. The ultimate goal is anyone can lead the team if they need to. Next, we have support group hours per active team. Project team success largely depends on the amount of support teams can get from departments such as maintenance, engineering, information systems. Maintenance has to prepare quotes. They may have to make special parts. Engineering may have to do drawings. Engineering may have to do calculations and get quotes. Information systems may have to provide new information or new reports or graphs or charts for the team. When the number of active teams is small, it's relatively easy to support team requests for information and changes without necessarily planning to do so. People just find a way to work it into their spare time, so to speak. However, there's a tipping point. As the number of active teams grows, organizations need to begin building team support time into the support department manning plans and budgets. For example, one might plan to devote 5 support group people hours to each active team hour per month. Just an example. Depends on your team skills. Depends on the types of projects your teams are working on. Depends on the speed of project development that you're after. But these are things you can think through and develop scenarios around, and then you're not surprised when either the teams don't perform or they require more money to be successful than you expected. Finally, if you haven't guessed already, we need to measure the percent overtime to be used. Time must be made available for teams to meet. Now, the design of your value stream, what you do as an organization, is going to somewhat determine this percentage. Because you can gain this time in 3 ways. We can shut down normal operations, and then that way we meet on regular time. We can provide coverage while team members attend meetings, or we can require all team activities to take place on overtime. And most organizations employ a mixture of these three approaches. Organizational type affects the degree to which these approaches can be used. So, for example, in a continuous process or a work system where consistent or constant customer attention is needed, like a food plant, a hospital, or a trucking company, you can't really halt or delay operations for a team meeting. We can provide coverage to using overtime in a food plant, but you can't do that as easily in a trucking company or in a hospital because of skill differences. So this is another one that you want to think about. This support ratio is used not as much to reflect an added cost as it is to define how the company intends to support teams. Overtime will work well in the short term, but it's not an effective long-term team support strategy. Team members simply get tired of the long days as time goes by, even if it's just one long day a week or 2 long days a week. They have families. They have things to do outside of work. Instead, either your operations should be curtailed to free up team members, and if that's possible, or coverage should be built into the labor pool and the associated expense budgets. The most effective team process I've been a part of actually built time for team meetings and team support into the standard cost of the products and services. A final financial resource that is unrelated to time involves the allocation of capital and expense monies to team projects. There are limitations as to how much money we can spend in a given time frame in these areas, so it's important to include expected team needs when annual capital and expense budgets are put together. If we don't think about the teams, they'll end up not having enough support. Teams may find their projects taking a backseat as well to projects that are being promoted by more influential groups or individuals if we don't have them present, at least on a list, when we're putting these budgets together. Finally, you should avoid forming more teams to work on capital funding projects than you have capital dollars in a given time frame to support. And that might sound like common sense, but it is also so super easy to do.